I thought I'd just quickly stitch out those feathers for you, just to show you how I would sew it after I've drawn them out. This is just my little practice sandwich that I've got sitting at the machine. I like to just get a strip of batting that's left over from a quilt and put two different coloured fabrics on either side. That way I can use the same coloured thread top and bottom, and I can kind of see if I've got any tension issues or anything like that. So first up, on the Sweet 16, we need to bring up that bobbin thread. So I'll just kind of start down the bottom here somewhere, and I'll just tap the foot and tap it again, and that'll bring up the thread. And you can see if I just give that thread a tug, the bobbin thread will come up and I can just grab a hold of it. And then I'll hang on to those and just do a few stitches to secure the stitches there. Okay, now I'm ready to go. I've got the machine set on 50. I might just take it down to 35 so I can show you. That's my speed, by the way. I'll take it down to 35 so I don't have to worry about how far to the floor my foot is. I can just put it flat to the floor and go from there. So I'll just start stitching. And first of all, of course, I'm going to draw my stem and give myself a couple of little curves and do that teardrop at the top. Then I'm going to track back down on the stem, back down to the bottom. Because as I said in the drawing, I like to start from the bottom and work my way up, back up to the top. So I'm going to start with that little curve and then back around and come back into the stem at that nice angle. And I'll work my way back up to the top, always going into the stem at that angle. I'll do a little short one so I can really curve around there. I find there's a few different types of people. Some who like the really traditional feathers where the feathers are all exactly the same size, and then there's the more the quilters who like me, who like the different shape feathers that give it lots of variety. So this is the way I would quilt them, with lots of different size feathers. I don't want them all to be the same. I'm just going to stop for a second because I'm kind of losing control at the top here. My hands are too far away and I'm not able to control that well enough. So I'm just going to reposition my hands. I'm just going to do a little one here, and then I'm going to fill with a big one to finish it off. And there we go. And back down to the bottom again. Again, I'm going to reposition my hands because I've kind of lost a bit of control there. Start off with that C again, that curve. Now at this stage I'm not worrying about my stitch length, I'm just wanting to get the shape down right. I'm just going to throw in a little one there. The stitch length will come with time and with practice. The more comfortable you are with the shape, the better your stitch length will be. So don't worry about that too much to start with. And the more you draw, the better your feathers will be when you come to quilting. And that goes for all shapes, all styles of quilting. The more you draw it on paper, I've found anyway, the better that my shapes are. I'm just going to do one more little one up there to fill it in, and I'm going to trace back down to the bottom again. Now you will end up, if you do it this way, you will end up with a really heavy stem, but I actually kind of like that. I think that's kind of my style, and I prefer it to look that way. If you don't, you can echo back around from the top to get back down to the starting point, and that way you're not tracing over it again. Now I'm going to echo. When I'm echoing, I like to be, if they're this size, I like to be about 1/8 of an inch away from the feather. I find that's a good distance, but the bigger the feathers, obviously, the more distance you want for your echo. But you do want to keep your echo fairly close. It just sort of highlights the piece. way back down. I kind of hover at those points to get a nice sharp point in those little grooves. I find that you need to kind of stop, or not stop, but just hover in that point to get a nice sharp point there. And I'm just going to put those little lines in. I don't know what they're called, but they're just basically a little line that I'm just backtracking over. I'll throw in a little curve. Another thing that I find looks really good, I try not to make the feathers even on both sides, so I don't have one on the right then one on the left. I tend to kind of mix it up depending on how much room I've got in the curve or which way the curve's going. I find in nature nothing's ever even, so I prefer to have an irregular or a different number of feathers on the right as to the left. I'm going a lot slower than I normally would, just so you can see a bit better. So my hands are going fairly slow. Normally I would go a fair bit faster than this. But you'll find your own speed, you'll find what works for you. I'll throw in another little curve up here. And there we go, back down to the bottom. Like that, and that's our feather. I'll just show you some pebbles and how I quilt pebbles. As I said, I like to do the figure eight. With the figure eight, you will end up tracing over half of the circle each time. So you're really doing about 1.5. Well, that time I nearly went around the whole thing, the whole circle twice. But you kind of are tracing over the pebble to complete that figure eight. I actually find pebbles easier than stippling. I think because I'm so used to drawing, circles. Everybody knows how to draw a circle, so I find it a lot easier to do pebbles. Once I worked out that I needed to do that figure eight shape and I needed to reverse the direction each time, I found pebbles really easy. So if you're having trouble with your stippling, just try doing the pebbles and I think you might be surprised. The other thing I found with free motion quilting, I found that I was trying to go too fast right from the get-go. I found that if I slowed my speed down a bit, even though my stitches weren't particularly even, I found I was getting better shapes. So if you're having trouble, slow your speed down and see how you go with a slower speed on your machine. It just gives you more thinking time. If you're going super fast, you kind of need to know exactly where you're going. So there we go, that's my how I quilt my feathers.